Everything is falling apart. The deadline moved up. The plan changed. The thing that was supposed to work did not work. Everyone around them is visibly unraveling. Voices are getting louder. Decisions are getting worse. The panic is contagious, and it is spreading through the room like a current. And then there is this one person. They take a breath. Their voice stays level. Their eyes stay clear. They look at the situation not the way everyone else is looking at it, as a catastrophe, but as a problem. A solvable, navigable, manageable problem. And something extraordinary happens. The room steadies around them, not because they fixed anything yet, but because their calm became the most powerful thing present. You have encountered this person. Maybe you have wondered what they are made of. Maybe you have wished you could respond to pressure the way they do, instead of the way you currently do. The truth is, they are not made of anything different than you. They have simply developed a set of psychological skills that most people never learn because most people never understood that staying calm under pressure is a skill at all. Today, we are going inside the minds of people who never seem to crack, and we are going to show you exactly how they are built from the inside out. The first thing that separates people who stay calm under pressure from everyone else is that they understand what is actually happening to them when stress hits. And that understanding alone is one of the most powerful tools in emotional regulation. When you encounter a high-pressure situation, your brain's threat detection system, centered in the amygdala, fires an alarm that triggers a cascade of physiological responses. Cortisol and adrenaline flood your system. Your heart rate accelerates. Your breathing becomes shallow. Blood flow is redirected away from your prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thought, creativity, and decision-making, and toward your muscles in preparation for fight or flight. This is your stress response, and it was exquisitely designed for physical threats. The problem is that it is almost entirely counterproductive when the threat is a difficult conversation, a work crisis, a high-stakes presentation, or any of the complex social and cognitive challenges that modern pressure actually consists of. Because the very part of your brain you most need under pressure, your prefrontal cortex, is the part the stress response actively suppresses. People who stay calm have learned to recognize this cascade early, before it has fully taken hold. And that early recognition gives them something most people never get: a window, a brief but real space between the trigger and the takeover in which a different response becomes possible. They have named what is happening to them, and naming it is neurologically significant in ways the research makes very clear. Psychologist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA conducted research that produced one of the most practically important findings in modern neuroscience. He found that simply labeling an emotion, putting a word to what you are feeling in a moment of stress, measurably reduces the activation of the amygdala and increases activity in the prefrontal cortex. The act of naming what is happening to you literally shifts processing from the reactive emotional brain to the thinking brain. People who stay calm under pressure do this instinctively. When pressure hits, they do not get swept into the feeling. They observe it. They name it. I am feeling anxious. I am feeling overwhelmed. I notice my chest is tight. This is not emotional suppression. It is emotional observation. And the distance that observation creates between you and the feeling is the space in which composed response becomes possible, combined with deliberate breathing, and this becomes a genuine physiological intervention. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's research on what he calls the physiological sigh, a double inhale through the nose followed by a long exhale through the mouth, demonstrates that this specific breathing pattern is the fastest known method for reducing physiological arousal. It directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the biological counterweight to the stress response. People who stay calm are not suppressing their stress. They are actively and skillfully down-regulating it through mechanisms that are available to any human being with a working respiratory system. Now let us talk about cognitive reframing, because this is the mental skill that allows calm people to see pressure situations differently from the moment they encounter them, before the emotional response has a chance to escalate. Cognitive reframing is the practice of consciously changing the interpretive frame through which you view a situation. And it is not positive thinking in the superficial sense of pretending things are fine when they are not. It is the deliberate application of a different and often more accurate perspective to a situation that stress is currently making look worse than it actually is. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and spent decades studying the relationship between meaning and human resilience, described the space between stimulus and response as the place where human freedom lives. Calm people inhabit that space, When a crisis hits, most people's brains automatically move to the worst-case interpretation. This is catastrophic. This changes everything. This is going to end badly. But calm people have trained themselves to ask a different set of questions in that same moment. What is actually within my control here? What is the most useful thing I can do right now? Will this matter as much in 6 months as it feels like it matters in this moment? These questions are not denial. They are precision. They are the cognitive equivalent of adjusting the lens through which the situation is being viewed. And a different lens produces a different emotional response, which produces a different quality of action. Here is something about consistently calm people that most analysis of emotional regulation misses entirely, and it is one of the most important pieces of this entire picture. Their calm is not primarily a technique. It is an expression of a stable identity. They have done the work of knowing who they are clearly enough that external pressure does not threaten their sense of self. And this matters enormously because a large portion of what makes pressure feel overwhelming is not the practical challenge it presents but the existential threat it seems to carry. When a project fails, it does not just mean a project failed. For many people, it means they are a failure. When a conflict arises, it does not just mean there is a disagreement to resolve. It feels like evidence about their worth or their competence or their belonging. This layer of identity threat is what converts manageable pressure into psychological emergency. Calm people have separated their identity from their outcomes at a fundamental level. They know their values. They have built a self-concept rooted in how they operate, rather than in whether every outcome goes their way. And because the pressure cannot touch the foundation of who they believe themselves to be, the pressure stays where it belongs, as a practical problem requiring a practical response, not as a verdict about their adequacy as a human being. Let us talk about preparation, because one of the least glamorous and most effective secrets of consistently calm people is that they rarely arrive at high-pressure moments unprepared. Not unprepared in the logistical sense necessarily, but psychologically unprepared. There is a well-researched psychological practice used by elite athletes, military special operations personnel, and high-stakes surgeons called stress inoculation training. And its core principle is elegantly simple. You expose yourself to controlled doses of stress in advance so that when the real pressure arrives, your nervous system has already encountered something like it and has already developed the neural pathways for a regulated response. In everyday life, this does not require special training. It requires the habit of mentally rehearsing difficult scenarios before they happen, of asking yourself how you will respond if this goes wrong, of visualizing the moment of pressure and practicing your composed response in your imagination before you need it in reality. Research by neuroscientist Gabriele Oettingen on what she calls mental contrasting demonstrates that people who mentally rehearse both the desired outcome and the specific obstacles they might face are significantly more effective at navigating those obstacles when they appear than people who either only visualize success or who do not mentally prepare at all. Calm under pressure is partly constitutional, but it is also significantly cultivated, and much of that cultivation happens in quiet moments of deliberate mental preparation, long before the pressure actually arrives. Here is a counterintuitive truth about staying calm that the research confirms with remarkable consistency. In a genuine crisis, the most effective response almost always requires slowing down at the exact moment when every instinct is screaming to speed up. Pressure creates urgency, and urgency creates reactive fast thinking. And reactive fast thinking under stress is driven primarily by the emotional brain rather than the prefrontal cortex, which means it tends to be error-prone, short-sighted, and shaped more by what feels necessary than by what is actually most effective. People who stay calm have learned to use slowness as a strategic tool. They pause before they speak. They ask one clarifying question before they start generating solutions. They take the 10 seconds to think when the room is demanding an immediate answer, because they understand that a considered response delivered slightly later is almost always superior to a reactive response delivered immediately. This deliberate deceleration looks from the outside like unflappable confidence. And in a sense it is, because it is the behavioral expression of someone who trusts their own judgment enough to give it the time it needs to operate at its best rather than sacrificing quality for the appearance of immediate decisive action. Slowing down in a crisis is not hesitation. It is the highest form of competence under pressure. So let us bring all of this together, because there is a complete and buildable picture here. and it belongs to you as much as it belongs to anyone you have ever admired for their composure. The people who stay calm under pressure are not a different species. They have built specific psychological skills through specific practices, and those practices are available to everyone. They have learned to recognize their stress response early enough to name it before it takes over. They have developed deliberate physiological tools, breathing patterns, and self-observation habits that down-regulate their nervous system before it reaches the point of hijack. They have practiced cognitive reframing until asking what is actually within my control right now is a reflex rather than an effort. They have done the identity work of separating who they are from how any given situation turns out, so that pressure stays as practical challenge rather than existential threat. They have prepared mentally for difficulty in advance so that their nervous system arrives at high-stakes moments with some degree of familiarity rather than total shock. And they have trained themselves to slow down when every instinct says to speed up because they understand that their best thinking requires time that urgency tries to steal from them. None of these skills require special intelligence or extraordinary character. They require practice, daily practice, in the small pressures as much as the large ones. Because the person who learns to stay calm when the traffic is bad and the meeting runs long and the small frustrations stack up is the same person who stays calm when the real crisis arrives. Composure is not a gift given to the few. It is a skill built by anyone willing to practice it in the moments when it is hardest to remember that it is a choice.